Okay, this presentation is for the Anzac Hall and Glazed Link component of the War Memorial expansion. And it's important to note that this part of the memorial from Charles Bean's original vision of the memorial as a memorial, the shrine, and the museum and archive. And this component represents the museum part of that capacity, and we do not impact on the memorial and the shrine component. When we started the design competition, we started with the idea of these stories and how these stories of those that have served and served with honor need to be told so that future generations can build on those and come to the War Memorial and experience those the legacy that these people have left. And in the Anzac Hall, the expansion provides the opportunity to expand on some of the modern conflicts which are underrepresented in the main building and require this additional space to tell these new stories of those who've served our country. Now, we used several techniques to help tell these stories and heighten the senses and the experience. And the first one being duality, the idea of light and shade, old and new, above ground, below ground, and creating these contrasts that help heighten the senses and the viewer and their experience of these important stories. The second being atmosphere and using not only light and shade, but acoustics and tactility in the sense of materials and the experience of the viewer as they move through the spaces. And the final one being the idea of ritual. And there's many important rituals on the site and within Canberra today, from Anzac Hall to the last post. And it's very important that we build on those rituals and don't impact them in any way. Now, when we began the design for the War Memorial in the competition, as at the same time as we were completing the expansion to an important memorial in France for Villers-Bretonneux. And this gave us some cues in how a memorial could be expanded with a museum component in a very sensitive way. And this building has just been honoured with several awards in the international chapter of the AIA. This old Suddeston and Crust drawing from the War Memorial Archives shows the original War Memorial building without the east and west flanks expansion, and shows this building that sits within a landscape environment. And whilst that's been added to today, we still think this idea of the memorial and the museum within the landscape setting is very important. So this sort of partie, if you like, of the design approach here shows the idea of that important main building sitting within the landscape. And then we create this elevated plane which sort of tilts up away from the main building to create the volumes we need to get the additional gallery space to the rear, whilst trying to minimize its impact and interface on the main building. We then carve out this circular form for the Glazed Link, which embraces the main building and removes the volumes from behind and creates a lightweight interface with the main building itself. And here you'll see the view from the northwest, looking back towards the dome, and you can see that the Anzac Hall there buried within the landscape and the Glazed Link resting gently upon the existing main building. And now the view from an aerial view looking north towards Mount Ainslie in the rear shows the complete composition with the new southern entry to the south and the parade ground and the main building, and then you can see the Glazed Link and the Anzac Hall components to the rear. And again, that important connection to the axes and Mount Ainslie, and also the Anzac Parade all the way down to Parliament House. Again, this idea that the idea for the curved form of the Glazed Link came about from studying these early drawings from the original architects in the archive, and you can see that sort of crescent-shaped hedge that frames the rear apse. That was a cue that we took to generating the form and geometry of the Glazed Link to embrace the main building and provide vistas around in the round of that existing fabric. You can see again in plan, this crescent form now represented in the road at that time. And then you can see overlaid on that the current plan for the Glazed Link and Anzac Hall, taking that crescent shape and framing the apse. It's important to note that we work with the powerful existing geometries of the axis, the radiating forms, the symmetry and very strong geometry of the existing main building, and that radiates through the expansion to the Glazed Link and Anzac Hall components. And through coincidence, as we developed the form on these geometries, it became evident that the opportunity for the roof form to reflect the Anzac badge and the importance of that symbol would now be evident from the air and Mount Ainslie as you look down upon the expansion to the War Memorial. When we looked to develop the design of the Glazed Link, it was very important that this was a lightweight structure in the fact that we want, you know, a huge amount of daylight in that space, but also that as it rests upon the main building, it doesn't transpose forces into that existing fabric. And we look to the technologies of airplane design with the sort of the curving nature and also the diagrid, but also, you know, nothing's more lightweight than a parachute, and how fabric is obviously the lightest material to create the envelope. So with that exploration, we began to look at the idea of some high-tech structural framing, but also the material of ETFE, which would create that super light coverage, but also create the insulation and thermal protection that the space needs to be comfortable year-round and sustainably maintained that temperature. So the view now from the top of Anzac Hall, looking back to the dome, you can see the Glazed Link, the gutter edge there just floats above the wall of the Anzac Hall, and you can see the ETFE surface there on top. And looking back towards Mount Ainslie to the north, you'll see that the ETFE is fritted, and it's at its clearest, closest to the dome, where we open up those views of the dome. But to get the solar, to block out that solar heat gain, the frit gets heavier and heavier as you move further away from the main building. We also like the idea of reusing the same stone that's used on the original building, the Wondabyne sandstone, but in a new way, in a contrasting way, such that it's a rough texture, a split face sandstone in the new use of the stone, in contrast with that flush face of the main building's existing stone today. And the materiality of the materials that we took on, we wanted materials that would age and patina and take on time and reflect that. And you really get better with age. And you can see the palette here that we had from the competition phase is really largely unchanged, but we're talking about, you know, high quality sandstone, bronzes and brasses, and some hard Australian timbers where possible. Again, the design team with the authorities did a lot of exploration on this balance between not disturbing the view from Anzac Parade, and what the memorial as you see it today remains largely unchanged from this vista. Also the view from Mount Ainslie, and the Glazed Link itself now tracks around the parapet to outline the building. But then there's also this balance of how you see the building in the round up close and interface with the rear apse within the Glazed Link and the surrounds to the north of the building. Another area that has taken a lot of research and analysis is the interface and how we meet the stone to seal the Glazed Link. And at this point, the design has been evolved to a point where we're not cutting the existing sandstone, but instead creating a gasket that gently presses against the sandstone to seal the space, and also just going over the parapet, and that structural frame of the Glazed Link itself is supported on the metal deck roof. So the interface does not cut that existing sandstone of the main building. Now, walking through some of the spaces that we've created and the flow, you can see here now the Glazed Link, which creates 2,000 square meters of space, which is really a space sort of recharge and recalibrate on what can be a long journey through the large institution that the War Memorial is. But this space gives you the opportunity with the cafe, a couple of LTO objects in there, and of course retaining the HMAS Brisbane, but the opportunity to recharge before you go into the new galleries representing the modern conflicts in the Anzac Hall. And you can see here that split-faced sandstone that we've created in contrast to the smooth on the Anzac Hall wall and the ETFE roof over the top. Now looking back from the eastern side of the Glazed Link, that there's a privacy buffer there to the cafe space, and you can see the portals, those bronze portals that are the entry portals to the Anzac Hall proper and the lower gallery. You can also see that transition in the ETFE roof with the heavily fritted ETFE as you move away from the main building, and then it becomes more and more transparent until it's clear as you meet the main building to give views towards the dome through there. A view from the cafe space, you can see that that's that gentle screen providing a level of separation to the Glazed Link proper, but still engaged with the space as you pause to recharge on your journey through the War Memorial. And this view here is a close-up showing those bronze portals, which highlight a natural wayfinding of these are, the places to enter and exit galleries and transition into the new spaces. And you can see in the center, there's an entry point there. And then this is on the eastern entry portal, we can see the escalators which take you down to the lower gallery. And then also there's an entry point through into the upper gallery there as well. And now you'll see in the plan form, we're looking at we've got an events entry on the western side opposite the admin building, which can be used for after hours events and just, isolating this portion of the memorial to hold those. And now we've got greater connections to the Bean Tunnel, which takes you across to the archive building. Got the kitchen and cafe here on the eastern side, and the new security lobby, which has its own dedicated stair and lift access there for contractors to move in and out of the building without disrupting the operations of the main building proper. So moving from the Glazed Link to the Anzac Hall, you'll see there's 3 ways in, which allows us to isolate sections of the hall for transition of display, and maintain 2 exit entry points to function so that the remaining Anzac Hall can continue in operation. It's providing some 3,440 square meters on this level. And when combined with the lower gallery space, that's almost double the amount of space that the existing Anzac Hall had provided to tell those modern conflicts that are underrepresented in the main building today. And now we'll come in and into that space and show you some of the views. Looking here from that central axis as you move into the from the Glazed Link into the main building. And here, this is an important device here, the aperture, which shows this connection down to the lower galleries so that objects which are significant to various conflicts can be, those conflicts can be told across multiple levels, but also it's a key wayfinding device to ensure that the visitors are very well aware of the lower gallery, and there's lots more to explore down there as they start their journey. The view here back on the axis, and you'll see we've placed a couple of objects in these spaces, but this is not the fit out. We are doing the base building architecture, and the exhibition designers are doing a comprehensive design for the first fit out. And again, the space is flexible for those fit outs to evolve and change over the years as required. So back to the plan, looking at some of the service spaces that facilitate the Anzac Hall operation. We've got the loading area here on the western side, which is, we're highlighting a dock leveler there, which also provides access from the day-to-day for sort of medium-sized objects to come through. We've got a lifting pit in the floor, which can take very large objects down to the lower gallery for sort of major changeover there. So that's something that would probably only be accessed once every 15 years for a major transition. And we've also got a large door that allows very large objects to come through into the Anzac Hall, which is seamlessly integrated into that bronze facade there on the western front. There's this passageway that runs right the way around the back of the Anzac Hall upper gallery, allowing access for comms and data guys to get into the server rooms and update an exhibit if they need to whilst in operation without disturbing the viewers and visitors. And then we've got some egress stairs and other back of house items integrated into that space. We're still also at this level, we've got the connection back to the Bean building. So things that have had restoration or coming out of archives can come directly through and into the Anzac Hall for display. And now moving from the Anzac Hall down to the lower gallery, there's three avenues that you can take. There's the lift on the central axis, and then either side of that, there's an east and west portal, which takes you through a journey down the escalators. And of course, that aperture in the center of the Anzac Hall provides a visual connection down to the lower gallery. So you can see now, as we move to the lower gallery plan, the 2,950 square meters of additional column-free space down here. You can see from those escalators, there's a journey down, there's a mezzanine as the escalators change directions where you can take views over the lower gallery space. And then you come back onto that important central axis to enter the lower gallery proper. Again, we've got some views of that. Standing now is on that central axis as you enter under the aperture into the lower gallery space. And looking back down the central axis with the aperture in the foreground there. And that entry portal you can see as you come through the center. And on the top right and left, you'll see those viewing windows from that mezzanine point on the journey down through the escalator. And another shot of the lower gallery here. So from there, we can also move up to the mezzanine floor, and you can come up via the lifts or via these stairs on either side of the axes, which take you up to the mezzanine, which is at the same level as the aircraft hall is today in the main building. And again, so that access point, and you come across an open bridge onto a mezzanine, which again has a beautiful gallery view over the upper gallery below, but also some space for temporary exhibits of about 490 square meters on that floor for smaller objects. Again, looking at that view now as you come out of the main building from the aircraft hall, looking across the bridge to the sandstone, the new sandstone wall, and the aperture there that takes you through. And looking back, you can see the dome from the bridge through the transparent portion of ETFE and that important axis back into the main building. This shot looking from the gallery space and that mezzanine from the upper level, you can see a broad view of the gallery below and that aperture. Stepping outside now and looking at the site plan, you can see how the main building sits within this landscape, and we're going to take you around the building to see those views as the design stands at the moment. So looking on the western side, looking towards the northeast, you can see the Glazed Link as it interfaces with the main building, and you can see the Anzac Hall proper there, the bronze and the concrete edged roof as it's tilting down towards the main building, getting lower as it interfaces with that main building. The view out from the admin building here, you can see the events entry of the Anzac Hall, and you can see the transparency at this time of day. At dusk, there's that glazed link wall is as transparent as possible. And again, the lighting from the main building will carry around and through and ensure that the main building is the primacy in terms of lighting, and the new buildings are sort of softly lit as a counterpoint to that. The view here from the northwest, looking back down, you can see from Trelaw Crescent, you can see that the dome of the main building is still ever present, and you can see how the Anzac Hall is buried into the hill here to minimize its impact a visual scale point of view, and then again the glazed link, and it's a very light touch to the main building. Almost on the axis from the north, looking back towards the glazed link, you can see that again we've used the split face stone here on the rear wall, and that's in a sort of fluted texture as it steps around the curve of Treloar Crescent, and the tilted plane of the roof form with its GRC concrete edge floats over that stone wall. And it's important to note that that recessed space allows for all of the mechanical exhaust, etc., and the air intake to be subtly integrated without creating a series of grills on the face. It's all integrated in that shadow line. This view now from the eastern side, where the topography is a bit higher than over on the west, the building is really well sunk down on this side, and you can see again the ever-present main building. And now looking back towards the Anzac Hall roof, you can see that copper roof is just present here at this level from ground. And you see the glazed link on the left of the screen and Mount Ainslie beyond. So returning back to that overall composition with the glazed link in the background and the Anzac Hall behind that, we'll now show a short video that brings all of this together.